During our previous presentation, I told you about the emotion of gratitude that I experienced. I was lying on my bed in the room that was provided by the wealthy lady of Shunammite. I was wondering what I could do for her in return of her hospitality. Let me quote once more from the writer of my sacred history. And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. Then he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Call the Shunammite woman." When he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to him, "Say now to her, look, you have been concerned for us all this care. What can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?" She answered, "I dwell among my own people." So he said, "What then is to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Actually, she has no son, and her husband is old." I told Gehazi to call her, and then I made the following surprised announcement. So he said, "Call her." When he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then I said, "About this time next year, you shall embrace a son." And she said, "No, my Lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." But you know, what is impossible with men is possible with God. It's impossible with me and you, but not with God. If she desired a son, God could make that possible for her. My promise to her of a son within 1 year was far beyond her fondest hopes. "No, my Lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant. It's impossible." You should have seen her reaction of surprise and unbelief at the same time. "Prophet Elisha, please do not deceive me by setting before me hopes that cannot be realized." I just smiled and thought of Abram and Sarah, who could not believe that such a miracle could ever happen. Gehazi and I left. Listen what happened when we called on her a year later. But the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her. "No, my Lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." A true prophet of the Lord does not make false predictions in the name of the Lord. As I had promised, so it came to pass. Can you imagine how she nursed that miracle child with extraordinary love and care? But then, and the child grew. Now it happened one day that he went out to his father, to the reapers. And he said to his father, my head, my head." So he said to a servant, "Carry him to his mother." Probably a case of sunstroke. Reaping was a strenuous task, carried on at the hottest season of the year. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon. Then he died. Can you imagine her pain? She was devastated. Only mothers who lost their dear child knows the depth of this kind of pain. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him, and went out. Sorrow and joy, tears and laughter, life and death are not far apart in our sojourn through life. The son of the Shunammite had brought gladness into the home, extremely great gladness. But he was also the means of bringing great anguish of heart. He had been given to the Shunammite by the Lord, but now death claimed him as his own. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God. It was the busy harvest season. All the men and animals of this large establishment were in the field, but she asked for the immediate use of one of the animals and the driver. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him and went out. Then she called her husband and said, "Please send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back." Perhaps if she had informed him of her intention to call the prophet to raise her child, who was already dead, he might have deemed the journey useless and might have made an endeavor to dissuade her from her purpose. The matter was one of faith, and she seemed to keep it strictly between herself and God. So he said, "Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath." And she said, "It is well." Both were holy days, occasions for offerings and solemn assemblies. Evidently on such days it must have been customary for the people to assemble for purposes of worship or religious instruction and edification. If it had been either the new moon or the Sabbath, the woman's journey to the prophet would not have been looked upon as strange. But as it was, the husband could not understand her purpose. "It is well," literally, "peace, my husband." The answer was one of faith and hope. The child was dead, but she did not give way to grief or despair. She reasoned that if I, as a man of God, could intercede with God to provide the child in the first place, it would also have power with God to restore the child. However difficult a matter may be, when we commit a thing into the hands of God, we may have perfect assurance that it will be well. The answer may not always be exactly what we desire, but we can have peace and bow humbly and submissively to his will. Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Drive and go forward. Do not slacken the pace for me unless I tell you." She did not want to waste a second of time. She urged the servant to move as fast as possible. Never mind the inconvenience might be to her. The ride would be about 24 kilometers and would not be easy, but she had only one thought. She was to reach Elisha at the earliest possible moment. And so she departed and went to the man of God on Mount Carmel. So it was when the man of God saw her afar off, he said to his servant Gehazi, "Look, the Shunammite woman." At this stage I was staying on an eminence and could see a large part of the valley below. When I saw her in the distance, I recognized her. "Please run now to meet her and say to her, 'Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with your child?'" And she answered, "It is well." At the speed she was traveling, I knew immediately that something was wrong, and without waiting for her to approach me, I sent my servant to meet her, to ask the reason for her coming. And she said to Gehazi, "It is well." Again her answer was literally peace. The burden of her heart would be revealed only to the prophet, not to his servant. There are certain kinds of pain that we can only share with some very special friends. Now when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet. Can you see it? Sobbing. But Gehazi came near to push her away. Ugly man. But the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress. And the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me. I was embarrassed by the unsympathetic manner in which Gehazi tried to drag this lady away from me. Maybe he was upset that she refused to tell him about the death of her child. I had to reprimand him for his behavior. Now when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. You know, it is of utmost importance how we treat people. It is very important to ascertain through a person's body language what is wrong. A little later I will tell you why I had to dismiss him as my servant. You have to be kind to people. You have to be sensitive to their needs. Let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress. And the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me. The true child of God, whose heart is filled with love and sympathy, will be moved with compassion toward all who are heavy laden. He will endeavor to comfort them. True love is tender and kind and responds to the appeal of those who find themselves in need. The Lord did not reveal to me what happened. Revelations are made only in accordance with God's will. Only when God gives me special revelations and wisdom do my words possess unique authority. The idea that in such instances as this, I as a prophet should be in possession of all the facts is unwarranted. So she said, did I ask a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? She did not reproach me. She was just pouring out the bitter grief of her soul. She did not ask for this child in the first place. He was the result of my promise. Now she tells me he's dead. But the child that was given to her was now being taken from her. She does not say this in so many words. She does not need to, for I understood fully the meaning of her grief. Her words reveal the bitterness of her sorrow. She knows only that this son, whom she did not demand, is gone, and that her grief is infinitely greater than if she had never been permitted to know his love. You know, while I looked at this heartbroken mother, a thought came to me. What must I do? And I realized I must do something very quickly. Then he said to Gehazi, get yourself ready and take my staff in your hand and be on your way. You must meet, if you meet anyone, do not greet him. And if anyone greets you, do not answer him, but lay my staff on the face of the child. I knew that the woman was exhausted with her hurried journey, and that the way back would be all the more difficult and trying. As soon as I knew that the child was dead, I dispatched my servant with instructions as to his course of action. And the mother of the child said, As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you, Elisha. So he arose and followed her. The grief-stricken woman looked at me as the messenger through whom the Lord would display his power. And the Lord saw fit to honor her faith and to deal with her in accord with her soul's desire. Elisha, I trust you. During our long 24 kilometer walk to Shunammite, we had ample time to talk of the goodness of the Lord. Now Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Therefore he went back to meet him and told him, saying, the child has not awakened. Why? Was there something in Gehazi's life that prevented God to use him? Maybe the rude manner in which he treated this heartbroken woman. And maybe he thought, what would people say about me when they heard that I resurrected the child? When Elisha came into the house, there was the child lying dead on his bed. He went in therefore, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Can you visualize me walking into the room and looking with sadness upon the little corpse? And I started praying as I never prayed in my life. And he went up and lay on the child and put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And he stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. Now let me remind you of a similar experience in the life of Elijah, my mentor. This is what he told me. Now it happened after these things that the son of the woman who owned the house became sick, and his sickness was so serious that there was no breath left in him. So she said to Elijah, what have I to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son? And I said to her, give me your son. So he took him out of her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, have you also brought tragedy on the widow with whom I lodge by killing her son? And he stretched himself out on the child 3 times and cried to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, I pray, let this child's soul come back to him. Let his life come back to him. Then the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came back to him, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room in the house and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, see, your son lives. Then the woman said to Elijah, now by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is truth. I shall never forget the time when Elijah shared some of his emotions when the deceased child started breathing. Ah, what a moment. Now, but let me continue my witness of the resurrected child of the lady of Shunammite. He returned and walked back and forth in the house, and again went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. What if you were in my position? I just burst out in tears, fell on my knees, And I thank the Lord over and over and over for what he did. My dear friend, we serve a God that can raise the dead, even dead relationships. He can raise up. Elisha sent for Gehazi. He said to him, "Go and get the Shunammite woman." So he did. When she came, Elisha said, "Take your child." Study that surprised look on her face. No, is this real or am I dreaming? What did she do before taking the child from me? So she went in, fell at my feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she picked up her son and went out. First a big thank you and a very big hug while she was shedding tears of joy. This to me was so important. She first expressed her unspeakable joy, and then she got hold of her precious child. Can you imagine her unspeakable joy? She embraced him in her arms and held him close to her grateful heart. She kisses him again and again, tears falling all over him. My son, you died, but God gave you back to me." She could not use words to thank me. Her thanksgiving was too great for words. In deep gratefulness, she threw herself at my feet, pouring out in tears of joy the thanks of a mother's heart at having her dead child restored to life. The faith she displayed in God and his prophet was not without avail. If you obey God, you will be established. If you obey his prophets, you will prosper. One day in heaven, this scene will be repeated. God will say to parents who have lost a child, "Dear father, dear mother, death has robbed you of your child. I've restored your child, your son, your daughter back to life. Come and embrace them." I think we will do what the woman of Shunem did. The woman of Shunem did when God restored her son to life. She fell at Elisha's feet without saying a word. And we will fall at the feet of the Prince of Life and thank him over and over. My dear friend, by dying on Calvary, Jesus destroyed the devastating enemy called death. I'm looking forward to meet 5 little ones who died. Are you mourning the death of loved ones? Get ready for a joyful, everlasting reunion. Thank you, Father, that you can raise our loved ones, and for your ability to raise us as well. Thank you for a reunion that you are planning, where we can embrace our dear father, mother, children and friends. Hasten that day and wipe our tears from our eyes. In Jesus' name, Amen. Thank you for watching this presentation. To subscribe to our channel, click here, then click the bell to get notifications. For the next presentation, click here. See you next time.